This is TVP World. You're watching News in Depth. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Poland's parliament is reviewing a request to lift the immunity of former Justice Minister Zbigniew Ziobro, potentially opening the door for criminal charges linked to the management of a state fund. The case has sparked debate about legal accountability, political motivation, and institutional procedure. Joining us today on TVP World is Stuart Dowell, a political editor at tvpworld.com, to help us unpack what this means and why it matters. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Ben.
So, trying to understand Polish domestic politics is like hopping into a TV series in this 2000s episode. It's really hard to catch on. So for our international audience, can you help us understand what is parliamentary immunity in Poland? What does it entail? And why does this case matter?
Well, parliamentary immunity is the system that protects parliamentarians from politically motivated prosecutions. There's obviously a temptation in politics to do that. But sometimes, unfortunately, our parliamentarians break the law. And in such cases, there's a mechanism by which the immunity can be lifted, and such parliamentarian can be prosecuted in the courts just like any normal person.
Right, so this case that we're discussing today is perhaps one of the higher profile ones. Can you help us understand the reason behind it?
Yeah, Zbigniew Ziobro was the Justice Minister in the Law and Justice government, 2015 to 2023. He was there for 8 years. Justice Minister is a very, very important position in the country, and to face, he's the highest profile politician to face such serious charges in modern Polish history since 1989.
Right. And speaking of the charges, we do have a soundbite from the Rules and Deputies Affairs Committee chairman from the Civic Platform. So let's take a look at what some of these accusations are.
The committee recommends that Zbigniew Ziobro be stripped of his immunity on all 26 counts brought by the prosecution. The committee will petition the parliament to approve the detention and temporary arrest of Zbigniew Ziobro.
Right, so the prosecutor requests lists 26 separate acts and propose both lifting immunity as well as possible arrest. From what you know, what are some of the core allegations here?
Well, the largest, the biggest, most serious allegation is that Zbigniew Ziobro, the former Justice Minister, set up and led an organised crime organisation. I mean, that sounds very, very dramatic. We think of that in American gangster films, something like that. But according to the rules, the prosecutors believe that the acts that Zbigniew Ziobro carried out fit that definition. And that's the most serious charge, and it brings with it a prison sentence up to 25 years. The other charges are mainly involved with the alleged misappropriation of money from the Justice Fund. We'll probably come on to that in a minute. But they're connected with misappropriation, going beyond the permitted acts of a minister, acting inappropriately, money laundering as well.
All right, so are these allegations matching what we know is publicly being reported, or are there more to the investigation behind the scenes?
Well, the charges have been published. The details of how Ziobro and other people allegedly operated the scheme of misappropriating the money and giving that money to groups, foundations, NGOs that they were politically associated has been well documented in the press. So a lot of information is in the public sphere. Of course, the prosecutors have got their own email chains, SMS information, bank files. There'll be a lot more information, but we know the bare bones of it for sure.
Right. And Mr. Ziobro is currently in Budapest, rather present in Poland. What significance does his absence carry in the context of the proceedings?
Well, being in Budapest is highly significant because just under a year ago, his deputy, the junior minister in the Justice Ministry, a man called Marcin Romanowski, had similar charges levelled against him, very, very similar charges connected to the same case of participating in an organised crime group, not leading it and running it, but participating in very serious charges. He was actually detained by the authorities, but he was released because at that moment his immunity still stood, so they had to release him. And then he left to Hungary and requested political asylum, which was granted by Viktor Orbán's authoritarian regime. The fact that Zbigniew Ziobro is in Budapest right now, he says he's there because he was invited some time ago to take part in a conference on the rule of law, which is kind of like a bad joke given the circumstances. Maybe it's true, I don't know, but media reports, he's been quoted in the media as saying that he's been made aware that if he comes back to Poland he can expect to be arrested, and it kind of makes sense for him. He may have been advised by his lawyers to not come back to Poland. And of course the political asylum that was granted to his colleague caused a diplomatic fallout between Hungary and Poland. Viktor Orbán said that the case was a political witch hunt, and that the junior minister Marcin Romanowski was a victim of Donald Tusk, etc., etc. And if Zbigniew Ziobro is granted asylum, we can expect the same kind of rhetoric.
Right, so like you mentioned on top of the interview, this parliamentary immunity is set up in a way to prevent politically motivated prosecutions. And when this case is being launched, a lot of the opposition are saying that this is indeed a political witch hunt, and individuals like Viktor Orbán, like you mentioned, also paralleled that line as well. How do we know whether or not this is more of a political thing, or are there objective kind of facts behind it?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we won't know until trials have taken place and verdicts have been given. But it's interesting for me listening to the opposition, listening to Zbigniew Ziobro, his supporters and members of the opposition, that their defence is based on this claim that it's a political witch hunt, rather than substantive arguments why, as they say, the allegations are groundless. I'm waiting to hear something concrete. Whereas on the other side, the prosecutors have spent a long time gathering very, very concrete evidence, a lot of which we know because it's been reported in the media, the exact mechanisms by which all this stuff played out.
Right, let's say this case goes through. Do you think there will be any political ramifications or create a chilling effect where it might set a future precedence for whichever government is in power to be tempted to lifting even more political immunity out of opposition figures?
For sure, the government will. It plays into the government's strategy at the moment. In 2023, the present coalition campaigned on bringing to account the alleged wrongdoers from the former government. It made a small amount of progress up to the presidential election a few months ago under the previous Justice Minister Adam Bodnar. But when Rafał Trzaskowski, the coalition government's candidate, lost that presidential election to Karol Nawrocki, it was like the last nail in the coffin for the government being able to push through its legislative agenda. It can't do that now. What it does have control of is the Justice Ministry and some prosecutors. Not control as such, but they're within the Justice Ministry.
All right. Sorry, please go.
No, and this is one of the few ways that that the government can show its voters that it's fulfilling its electoral promises.
All right. Well, with the current political polarization situation, we're looking globally where politics has essentially become a team sport. Do you think that this case, well, how do you think this case will be viewed by Poland's European partners or even international observers who might not know or have the details of these cases, but purely looking at it from a political perspective?
Well, I think in Europe they'll be pleased. They'll see it as a positive step. Let's remind viewers that Poland was placed under Article 7, European Union sanctions measures because of rule of law issues. It had funds stopped from being transferred to Poland under the general structural funds, but also the redevelopment after COVID funds as well. When Donald Tusk's government came back into power, the government made not so much steps, but made declarations which satisfied the European Union, to the European Commission, to such an extent that that money started to be released to Poland, and things like this are steps in that direction as well. So definitely positive. I don't know, from the United States, we can imagine, based on previous statements from the Vice President J.D. Vance about the situation in Europe, that will probably view it very negatively. It's overreach, witch hunts, similar to Viktor Orban.
Mm-hmm. Well, media coverage in Poland also is highly polarized in the case as well. If you have any suggestion for international audience trying to look into this case, do you think there's any way to help them interpret the political signaling part of this versus the purely legal dimension of the process?
Yeah. As we were saying, the holding alleged wrongdoers to account is likely to be a central part of the government's strategy going into the parliamentary elections planned for late 2027. And I think that cases like this, and there may be more in other, because there are the whole range of other scandals and affairs involving members of the former government. I think the idea is to create a constant feed of news stories, of putting these people in front of the media. That kind of gives the impression to the audience that these things happened, and let's not forget about it. In politics, they say that when you're explaining, you're losing. And the Zbigniew Ziobro having to explain himself kind of by definition means that he's already losing politically.
All right. Is there a chance that this might somehow backfire and cause some fatigue with a lot of these ongoing investigations into the opposition figures and these legal proceedings?
Yeah, possibly. People on the support of the government obviously completely convinced that the government's acting correctly by promoting this strategy, and but on the other side it looks different. On the Law and Justice side, they're developing this kind of siege mentality, and that's good for their core voters to rally around. It's interesting, during the presidential election, there are a lot of unfavourable stories came out about the Law and Justice candidate Karol Nawrocki, about the acquisition of the apartments in Gdansk, about his involvement in bringing women into a hotel in Sopot, and there were lots of unpleasant stories. But in actual fact, it kind of had the opposite effect. A lot of people saw Nawrocki under attack, and kind of it may have actually increased his support. Something similar could possibly happen by constantly going on the attack.
Right. There does seem to be a mentality to root for the underdog for a lot of the electorate as well, and maybe there's a risk of kind of painting them in that picture as well.
Yeah.
But do you think the next couple of days with these votes now, well, still in procedure, from be it the ruling coalition or the opponents, do you think the outcome of these votes might impact broader political dynamics within the country? And do you think that the results of this case might sway the coming election in one way or another?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a shift in polling or political support over the next few days. But over the next 2 years, for sure, the government, the civic coalition, which is, of course, just one constituent of the ruling coalition, has seen its polling go up quite favourably in the last month or so, and it will want to capitalise on that. I think that, of course, what we've been talking about is polarisation, that both parties are trying to appeal to their core voters. But then we have to remember that there's another party in third place, Confederation, and their voters have signalled their dislike, even disgust of the previous government's stealing public money, as they say. So it may have an effect on them, and the question is which party will they want to form a coalition with. It looks obvious to a lot of people that they would do it with Law and Justice, because they're both on the right side of politics, less likely with the current government, but who knows?
Right, so a lot of things are still up in the air. Now, going back to helping the international audience understand a broader topic, beyond this individual case, what do you think this case tells us about the state of check and balances in the country, about prosecutorial autonomy, as well as political accountability in Poland as a whole?
It shows voters that there are no holy cows, that nobody's above the law. At least that's what it should do. It's kind of interesting that Zbigniew Ziobro some time ago called for, made a similar statement that nobody should be above the law, and even wanted immunity removed from all MPs as a matter of course. His opinion was that lawmakers should not be protected in any way from the laws that they pass. But now, what's happened in the last kind of 6-8 months is that we've seen Zbigniew Ziobro being called time and time again to answer questions in Parliament about a different case. It was about the Pegasus surveillance case, and him repeatedly not attending and kind of avoiding scrutiny. So there's definitely contradictions in that narrative.
All right, so that brings us back to today, and it does seem like we are all caught up. And thank you so much for helping us understand all the context of this very complicated proceedings. Thanks for being with us.
Welcome.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of News in Depth. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.